Well, hi everybody. Today I have Gautam Mahajan. Now, Gautam I've known for a little while now, and he is started the Journal of Creating Value, which has been going since May 2015, and also the Customer Value Creation International. Now, Gautam's focus is on really letting us as business people focus on what it means to create value, not just for the customer, but beyond, for instance, with employees as well. So, Gautam, before we begin, maybe you might want to just give a little introduction to yourself. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Stephen, I worked in the U.S. I'm an engineer, and by training, with an MBA at a later point in time. But I worked in the U.S. for a Fortune 50 company for about 20 odd years, and I ran different functions for them, which included R&D and manufacturing and business development and marketing, and then I was director of technology for the corporation, and then I ran a bunch of businesses. And then I came back to India and I started to consult in a number of different areas, first in the quasi techno management, and then in the management field. And I was actually doing a bunch of strategic tasks for the second largest Indian company. I was building strategies for the companies. And I came across an article that talked about customer value management and how you could actually predict market share by using customer value. And it quoted a Vodafone managing director who said that they could predict market share
Yes.
using CVM data to within 1% accuracy, and that it was a leading indicator of market share. And most of us in the industry work with lagging indicators, and we build what our market will be next year, and we present it to the board or to our bosses, and that's how we build the stuff. So I said to myself, I thought I was a hotshot marketing guy, and how come I didn't know about all this? And I started to delve into customer value, and I became a friend of the father of customer value management, who was Ray Cordapleski. And Ray had started this in the late 1980s when they discovered that they had great satisfaction scores, but they were losing market share, which told them that satisfaction did not relate to market share. And then they later on were able to prove that if you could measure the value that you were creating for your customer versus what competition was creating, you would actually be able to correlate that to loyalty and market share.
Fantastic.
And so I got into this and started doing work around the world with Ray. And I was very frustrated that companies could not see the value of the customer. And I wrote my first book, which was Customer Value Investment, which was basically to say that the investment in a customer is not very high. It's actually most things you do for a customer are for free. If you smile at a customer or you do the right things for a customer, it doesn't really cost you anything. And it's a myth that you have to spend a lot of money to take care of customers.
Yes. Okay.
So that was the first book. I don't know if you agree with that, Stephen.
Well, I think there's a lot of, as we discussed, interrelationship between the concept of customer value and the concept of customer experience. The issue is customer experience seems to have lost its way a little bit in terms of not connecting to value, as in a lot of vendors out there saying we do customer experience solutions when they don't actually mean we create value for the customer. We just measure, monitor, analyze, and report on experience, anything. So I like the concept of customer value. I suppose my question is, it's a
So,
great thought.
so let me just finish this,
Yeah.
and then I wrote my second book, which was Total Customer Value Management,
Yes.
and the idea there was that the entire company had to get involved. And while I was getting people to in different companies to look at this, I went to the next step of value creation, which was that you really cannot stop in trying to do to create value for the customer if you do not create value for your employees, your colleagues, your partners,
Yes.
your supply chain, your delivery chain, and if you do and for society, and if you do all of those things, you will create a heck of a lot more value for the customer, and therefore you will create a much more value for the shareholder. So that's how I got into all of this.
So, I mean, so you're moving corporate thinking towards creating value, but one of the key things is what is customer value creation? How do you measure it, for instance? So we spoke a little bit about satisfaction, those kind of metrics, attitudinal metrics, but what is customer value for you and how do you measure it?
So basically, value is the juxtaposition of what you pay and what you get, or
Yes.
really what you think you're paying and what you think you're getting. And when you look at that, you look at how you buy, you have always have the competitive offers in front of you, and you compare one item with the other. And what you compare is, this is going to cost me so much, this is the benefit I'm going to get from this, and the competitive offer is going to cost me so much, and this is the benefit I get. And if you believe that the first one gives you more value or more benefits versus the cost, you'll buy the first one. So the idea is, how do you improve that value? And you improve that value by reducing the focus on cost and increasing the focus on benefits. Now, what do I mean by that? So if costs turn out to be 70 or 80% and benefits are 20% in the buying equation, then you're actually trying to buy a commodity. The only thing that matters there is price. On the other hand, if you can convert your offer into such a way that the customer thinks that the benefits are 70% and the cost is 30%, then you have much more leeway in pricing and in getting the person to buy.
Yes.
So in customer value, we actually try to figure out how we can improve the benefits and how we can reduce the perception of cost. And the perception of cost is not just the price itself, but it's a bunch of non-price items like the time it takes to buy, or your emotional factors, or it has to do with the energy that's required, and all kinds of things. So there's a very large non-price issue. So many of us have stopped buying greeting cards. And it's not the cost of the greeting cards that prevents us from buying greeting cards. It's the non-price terms, the cost, the time it takes us to go and buy the greeting card, park our car, go into the store, do all of those things.
Yes.
That cost is too high, and therefore we don't want to buy greeting cards.
Okay. So it's the cost-benefit equation in mind.
So that's how we started to look at customer value, and then we said, if you really want to create much more value, then everyone has to participate in it, and companies have to focus on the employees just as much as they focus on the customer, and that's the next step. And that's why we went into value creation, because we realized that the role of an executive is really to create value. People who are successful create value. They don't know that they're creating value, so they do it unconsciously. And if you're creating value unconsciously, you might be destroying value unconsciously. So the idea is to do all of this consciously, create value consciously, and destroy less value if you're conscious about it. The second part of it is that we all taught in business schools to focus on our functions. You've got to be a good administrator, you've got to be a good manager, you've got to be a good efficiency expert. No one teaches you in business schools how to be a creator of value. How do you really go beyond your function? And every one of us is so comfortable with doing our functional job. If I'm an accountant, the accounting part is what I really want to work on. On the other hand, what companies really require of the accountant or the head of the accounting department is not just good accounting, but the ability to figure out what's going to happen with currencies and what's going to happen with changed accounting mechanisms or accounting processes in different countries, and what's happening with the change of currencies and things of that sort. That's creating value. Doing the functional stuff is something that you can outsource.
Yes. Okay. And who does this well? Have you seen any businesses in your time that you'd say that is best practice? Or is this a very new area, still developing practice?
So value creation, there are some people that do work in customer value. I'll name a few that we've done work with, like Disney,
yes,
like Bank of America, like Chase, people like State Farm, energy people like Wisconsin Energies, Tata Power, chemical companies like Tata Chemicals, companies in fertilizers, and companies in food. So it's all over the map. Software companies. So there are a bunch of companies, but I'd say maybe 5% of the total mix of companies would work on value creation, or at least try to take it seriously.
Okay.
What prevents people from doing this, I think, is that there is so much going on in the customer field, and sometimes customers or companies get confused. And Adrian Swinsko said that maybe we're just doing too much. There's too much talk about customers, and in the good old days, we talked less about customers, but we did more for the customers.
Yes, it's an interesting point. But I suppose it does beg the question: where would you start? So, if a company is bought into this concept, delivering benefits in relation to the cost of doing business with you, what should they do first? Is it the question of starting developing business cases or changing their measurement regimes? How would you start off on this journey?
So the first thing that they have to understand is that many of them are product focused, and that changes in products or improvements in products have a very short life because competition catches up very fast. The thing that is very difficult for competition to catch up with is mindset and attitudes. And the idea is, how do we get people to get the right attitudes and the right mindsets? And to do this, there are 3 or 4 things that we need to do simultaneously or sequentially in companies. One, at the top level, to change the mindset, you have to have a customer strategy where a whole bunch of people in the company get together, particularly the CXOs, and they participate and are an integral part of building a strategy. And then every single one of them has a leadership in a particular strategy and in some tactics.
Yes.
And so you might find a guy who head of communications, having a strategy or being in charge of a strategy which has to do with complaints. So,
Yes.
there's an intermix, and there are no walls. Our body has a lot of functional parts, but there are no walls within the body. We function as a whole, and corporations need to function as a whole. So that's what we do at the top level.